Part 17. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 161. It's finally completed. Now I'm not afraid of anyone. Binghua looked at the two weapons intently and said to himself, his words showing Binghua's confidence in these two weapons. Then Binghua suppressed her rising excitement and prepared to go out to see how the Skull Galaxy was doing now. If she calculated correctly, she had not actively contacted the outside world for more than 2 years. As soon as he walked out of the laboratory, Binghua saw a guardian angel rushing to greet him. "Queen, you are finally out." Binghua raised her eyebrows. "What's wrong? What happened?" As she spoke, Binghua directly connected to the dark information network of the Sky Sword Legion and began to read what happened during the period when she was immersed in studying the weapons. "Hercules, Huaye, if you dare to do this, are you bullying me?" There was a rare hint of anger in Binghua's tone, and his whole temperament also changed. An invisible mental oppression made the guarding angel opposite Binghua feel as if the air around him had become much heavier. The reason why Binghua was so angry was because during her absence, the Heavenly Sword Legion was like a rat that everyone wanted to kick. Hercules didn't say anything. Both sides have long disliked each other, and it was only a matter of time before they started fighting. But what does it mean that Hui Group suddenly intervened? Is it because they thought the lesson of breaking an arm last time was not enough? The current overall situation is like this. On the outskirts of the Skull Galaxy, the 700,000-strong Heavenly Sword Legion is fighting fiercely with Hergras. But at the same time, the Heavenly Sword Legion still has 400,000 troops concentrated in the area of the Mir Galaxy near the Angel Galaxy to resist the attack of the 300,000 Legion under the Hui Group. It can be said that the Heavenly Sword Legion is currently fighting on two fronts, and both fronts are being suppressed by the enemy, with no one having an advantage. First of all, the general in charge of the Huaye group this time is Chen Tian, a direct descendant of Huaye. The legion he leads includes 20,000 imperial guards. This makes the commander of the Tianjian Legion in charge of defense dare not divide his troops due to his superior strength. Able to hide and defend. On the other side, the battlefield against Tianye Qinghe Glass was personally commanded by Angel Ran. He relied on the previously established defense facilities and several Skyblade battleships to barely resist the attack. However, being broken through is only a matter of time. In the final analysis, the foundation is insufficient, and Angel Ran has no generals to use. Binghua felt that Angel Ran could achieve this step very well, and she would personally take over the next step. This time she must remove all obstacles to the crusade against Huaye. "Queen, you finally came out of the laboratory. I can hardly hold on any longer. Many sisters have died like this, but I can't save them at all." When Binghua contacted Angel Ran, the first words Ran spoke were this. Maybe it was because he was under too much psychological pressure. Every order Ran gave was related to the lives of tens of millions of sisters, so when Ran saw Binghua, at that moment, I finally couldn't suppress myself any longer. Okay, you have done a good job, just leave it to me. Queen, I will let them know the consequences of offending our Heavenly Sword Legion. Binghua comforted the sobbing Ran like a child, but the murderous intent in his last words was undisguised. After Zhe Ran stabilized his emotions, Binghua finally spoke. "Ran, you have to hold on for a few days. I have to deal with the tentacles that Huaye has stretched out first. Otherwise, we won't be able to concentrate on dealing with Hergras, so I'll leave the battlefield over there to you first." Ran wiped the tears from his eyes and nodded firmly. "Queen, I understand. I will definitely fulfill your order. I believe the sisters will be very happy to know that you will be here in person." Binghua nodded. Now that the battle situation was very urgent, the two sides were not interested in continuing to chat. After a few more words about how to command and defend against Hergras' attack, they terminated the contact. On the outskirts of the Mir galaxy, when Chen Tian led the army to re-attack some star systems in the Mir galaxy, he was warmly welcomed by the local male angels. Although the life of a male angel under the high-pressure rule of a female angel cannot be called miserable, it is not comparable to the beauty of the past. After all, it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. In the past, one male angel often dominated several female angels, but during the reign of female angels, most female angels did not even look at the male angels. Now that Chen Tian led his army to invade the Mir galaxy again, the male angel felt the taste of freedom for a long time, so he turned around and joined the Hui group and began to oppress the female angel again. The shortcomings of Binghua's ruling philosophy broke out at this moment. The entire angel civilization except female angels can be said to be an army. As a result, the number of legions under Chen Tian's command increased rapidly like a snowball, swelling to more than 500,000 in a short period of time. Binghua couldn't help but clenched his fists as he listened to the report from the branch below. When the projected image of the male angel intensifying his bullying of the female angel appeared, Binghua felt that she was too kind in the past. There was a muffled bang, and a golden-haired female angel cried and struggled to beg for mercy, while the male angel who was dragging her by the hair laughed excitedly, with perverted and twisted pleasure on his face. "You scream. No matter how you call those stinky bitches from the Heavenly Sword Legion, they won't come to save you. Now that this place has returned to the rule of King Huaya, you female angels can only belong to our male angels." Slave. The male angels wearing silver chainmail and helmets around them also laughed, sitting there watching with interest their companions torturing the female angel. "You will definitely be judged by the Heavenly Sword King." A female angel, covered in dirty mud and with disheveled hair, lay on the ground, looking at the group of violent male angels with red eyes filled with hatred. But what happened was indeed a merciless kick from the male angel. She immediately slid back several meters on the ground. The painful female angel subconsciously curled up her body. "Stop your daydreams. The Heavenly Sword Legion doesn't even dare to send troops now. It has been hiding in the Liaka star system. Sooner or later, it will be annihilated by General Chen Tian. Maybe I can capture a Skyward Sword Legion soldier by then. Give it a try." "That's right, I've seen those little girls in short skirts flying in the sky before, not to mention how tempting they are." The male angel soldiers started chatting with each other about some vulgar topics, while the female angel on the ground could only look helplessly at the sky with tears in her eyes. "King of Heavenly Sword, have you really given up on us? Then what should we do in the future?" Suddenly, the confused and helpless female angel saw a spark the size of a sesame seed appearing in the sky, and subconsciously thought about what it was. But the spark the size of a sesame seed grew bigger and bigger, and in an instant it turned into a meteor of fire trailing dozens of meters of flame. Even a blind man could sense such a large formation. The male angel soldiers who were gathering together to chat or torture the female angels immediately became wary. "What is this thing? Where is the fleet outside the atmosphere? How come there is no news at all?" At this moment, outside the planet's atmosphere, more than a dozen battleship-style warships were divided into several ships and floated quietly in the space. Surrounded by them were a large number of male angel soldiers who had been dismembered. Their faces were all filled with fear. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 162. Get up from the female angels and get ready for battle. The one coming from the sky is not good. A male angel with short, lean hair and a very solemn face raised his cross sword and ordered. Only the ravaged angel city on the ground was left, as well as the shivering female angels hiding in the corner. Thousands of male angels formed a circle in the air, and in the middle was the trajectory of the falling fire. As the fire grew larger and larger, the captain leading the male angels also saw clearly what was in the fire. It was an angel that broke into the atmosphere alone, and judging from its clothing and armor, she was a female angel of high status. Although the discipline of the Angel Legion is usually very loose, when it comes to regular combat, every Angel captain has strict requirements for the combat teams under his command. The enemy is a female angel. There is only one by visual inspection. The team at the front will gather around and prepare to capture him alive and present him to General Chen Tian. Because there was only one enemy, the male angel soldiers who were waiting for him suddenly showed a slightly frivolous smile, and the previous serious atmosphere disappeared. Amidst the burning red fire and the scream of the air caused by the rapid fall, Binghua opened his eyes and looked down at the getting closer and closer to the earth below through the red fire. Even though they were thousands of meters apart, she could still see the tragic scene on the ground, which made her already rising murderous intention even more difficult to calm down. Are male angels and female angels really the same race? Looking at the collapsed tall building, some angel corpses on the street, and a disheveled female angel walking out of the corner, Binghua couldn't help but ask herself. The angel wings gathered around the body and glowing with bright silver light suddenly unfolded, and a circle of air waves exploded in a ring, blowing away the red fire caused by the friction between the ice flower and the atmosphere due to its rapid fall. At the same time, several male angel combat teams gathered around and saw clearly who the female angel was who dared to break into the atmosphere alone. It is more gorgeous and complicated than ordinary angel warriors. It has a silver light armor with a white velvet scarf on its neck. Its lower body is not a short skirt but a red back skirt that reaches to the knees. What attracted the most attention of the male angels present was the long, flowing black hair of this female angel, and the heroic and beautiful face beneath it. As for the silver wings behind it that were different from ordinary angels and the silver white cloak that fluttered behind it, they were directly ignored by the male angels present. This female angel is so beautiful. If I can fall in love with her once, I will never look down on other female angels again. A male angel who approached Binghua sighed in a low voice to his companions, unable to take his eyes away from Binghua. Dream. Only General Chen Tian and King Huaya are qualified to possess such a beautiful and temperamental female angel. We can't peep into it. I'm addicted to it. Why are you so excited? Faced with the offensive words of other male angels, this male angel retorted, and at the same time, he kept moving, holding a war spear and flying slowly towards Binghua's position cautiously, maintaining an offensive formation with his surrounding companions at all times. Binghua's cold expression swept his surroundings like ice knives. He raised his right hand and opened it, and a micro-wormhole suddenly opened beside him. 8 god-binding chains with silver blades at the front shoot out, like a flower of death blooming in the air. The more than 20 male angels who gathered around were caught off guard, and 8 male angels on the spot were pierced through the chest and heart by the god-beaming lock. Binghua silently waved his open right hand in front of him, and the god-beaming lock began to move quickly driven by the silver blade at the front, biting the remaining male angels like poisonous snakes. Of course, those male angels would not continue to stay in place stupidly, and quickly spread out in the air to avoid, no longer caring about maintaining the offensive formation. But the Shensu lock controlled by Binghua was so easy to avoid after acquiring the weapon engine technology. Binghua no longer satisfied the restraining ability of the Shensu lock, so he split it into 8 pieces, and at the same time installed a dark silver knife with a built-in weapon engine on its front end. The weapon engine is actually a miniaturized supercomputer that can assist Binghua in performing very precise calculations. Therefore, with the help of the weapon engine, Binghua can easily control the Shushan lock to perform various operations that were previously impossible. The male angels made various evasive movements in the air, but the magic lock followed closely behind them, getting closer and closer, and finally plunged into the fatal part of the male angel's chest with a pop. Damn! Why the hell is this guy following you all the time? A male angel climbed into the sky, then suddenly folded his wings and fell like a meteorite, dodging the silver blade at the front of the god-beaming lock. But there was more than one divine lock, and the silver blade at the front of the other divine lock suddenly shot out from the side. Now it was too late to spread his wings to dodge. The male angel could only hit the silver blade with the war spear in his hand. Just hearing a metallic crisp sound, the war spear in the male angel's hand was directly cut off by the silver blade, and then penetrated the male angel's heart with unabated force. It seemed like a long time, but in less than 3 seconds, before the new command was shouted out from the male angel captain's mouth, there were more than 20 male angel corpses falling downwards in the air. The male angel's captain shrank his pupils and finally recognized who this female angel was, the queen to whom the Heavenly Sword Legion was loyal, the Heavenly Sword King Binghua. However, the captain did not feel much fear. Among the female angels, there were no super-genetically engineered warriors who were above 3 generations of warriors, so their thousands of angel warriors still had a chance. If they caught the Heavenly Sword King Binghua, it would be a great achievement. Everyone has a small team as a combat unit to carry out an all-round 3-dimensional encirclement and killing. Although Binghua's attack was very brutal, it was not enough to frighten the thousands of male angel warriors around him. In today's concept of angel civilization, even 3 generations of warriors would be besieged to death. As long as there were more people and a certain degree of cooperation, just be able to do it. It happened that the captain of the male angel was a man who had seen the world. He had participated in the expedition war led by Huake and knew how to surround and kill a 3rd-generation warrior. But what the captain didn't know was that Binghua was no ordinary 3rd-generation warrior. Seeing countless male angels surrounding him, the 8 divine beams that were originally extended were quickly retracted and hidden in the wormhole. Binghua reached forward and grasped the red abyss sword that popped out of the wormhole. Then the silver wings on his back spread out, and the whole person shot out like a burst of lightning amid the surrounding lightning. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 163. The team of male angels who originally gathered around Xiang Binghua only felt their eyes blurred when a burst of lightning flashed, and they found that their eyes were floating. When they lowered their heads, they saw that their bodies were divided into 2 halves from the chest area. The captain who was commanding from the outside only saw Binghua spinning around among the male angels, and many of his subordinates were cut in half by unknown weapons, screaming in pain in the air. Block, block, don't let her escape from the encirclement. The male angel captain shouted in the communication channel that as long as the encirclement net is not broken, there will still be a fight. Binghua jumped into the formation of the male angels, then suddenly stopped and waved the red abyss sword in his hand, and the extended blade cut through the surrounding male angels like a laser. Although the sharpness of the flame-level weapons was not as sharp as the dark silver weapons, it still scratched the armors and bodies of several male angels. Can you stop it? Binghua's cold voice echoed in the air. At this time, there was a sound of wind coming from behind. Binghua just turned slightly sideways and spread his silver right wing to protect his back. There was a crisp sound, and the male angel who was sneaking up from behind had a confused expression. He looked at the spear in his hand that had not even pierced Binghua's wings and was a little at a loss. Binghua turned around in the opposite direction, unfolded the angel's left wing, and swiped back the tip of its shining silver feathers. The armor and body of the male angel who was sneaking behind him were cut in half. Then Binghua no longer stayed in place. The body data of these male angels had been collected, and there was no change from before. The next moment, the ice blossom turned into blue lightning that harvested life, and accompanied by lightning and thunder, it jumped around in the formation of the male angels. For a moment, broken limbs and broken arms were scattered everywhere, and the silver chainmails worn by the male angels were like rags, being torn apart by Binghua's wings along with their bodies. However, these male angels of the general generation are unable to capture Binghua's movement trajectory at all. You must know that even Huaye, who has the strongest angel civilization today, can barely keep up with Binghua's speed. The original three-dimensional encirclement and killing formation was now like a wooden barrel with water seeping everywhere, and it was about to collapse completely. The angel captain who was on the outermost side swallowed his saliva and felt that he had made a wrong decision and quickly contacted his superiors. However, before the captain could successfully contact his superiors, the formation surrounding Binghua collapsed. Under Binghua's continuous harvest, the male angels were unable to fight back at all, and finally their morale dropped to a low point and turned into a rout. But Binghua didn't stop and directly chased after the fleeing male angel. At this moment, she was already red-eyed. For a moment, the sky was like a dumpling. As Binghua pursued, the bodies of male angels that were cut into pieces kept falling from the sky. Moreover, due to the sharp characteristics of the dark silver weapons, most of the male angels did not die immediately. Unfortunately, no rescue team will come to pick up their original partner's body. They can only suffer in the pain of being cut in half until their own vitality is exhausted and they die. The one-sided pursuit that lasted for more than an hour, no. The massacre finally stopped. After the last male angel in Binghua's side who shouted for mercy was cut in half by Yin Yu, Binghua finally stopped. High-speed movement. Looking at the blood of his own race stained on his body, Binghua felt empty inside. He didn't know what to do and was a little confused. However, this state only lasted for a few minutes before it stopped. Binghua's body began to fall. He found a raised stone on the ground and sat on it without checking whether it was clean or not. On the ground around Binghua, fragments of the male angel's body were scattered sparsely, as well as splatters of bright red blood. Under the dim sunlight, Binghua's shadow stretched long behind her. Is it Kira? I have defeated the male angels on Tyr. Send soldiers to take them over. Queen, do you need a guardian angel to go? No, leave me alone for a while. After saying that, Binghua hung up the communication. It can be said that today was the first time that Binghua killed those male angels who begged for mercy. In the past, Binghua's combat philosophy was that as long as the male angel surrendered, she would usually choose to accept it. After confiscating their weapons and restricting their movements, some of them who were not hostile to the female angels were directly released. Of course, in the battle between the Heavenly Sword Legion and the male angels, only a few people were willing to surrender, so Binghua was so tolerant. But today, when the male angels being chased by Binghua begged for mercy and even put down their weapons, Binghua did not stop, but chose to use silver feathers to draw across their bodies, plunging them into eternal darkness. However, Binghua didn't feel that he had done anything wrong, he just felt that this arrow was too cruel, but Binghua was willing to have the blood of his own race on his hands for the sake of the future. The battlefield between the outer reaches of the Mill Galaxy and the Hui group began to reverse after Binghua joined. Not only was the morale improved, but Binghua's reputation gradually spread, and the name of the god of killing was forged with the blood of countless male angels. There is a god-slayer Seminary in the Hui group. She once slaughtered an indigenous civilization alone. Such a crazy behavior earned Seminary the title of god-slayer. And Binghua's name as the god of death was made entirely from the bones of thousands of male angels. There was no comparison between the two. Finally, after a period of conflict, it ended with Chen Tian evacuating the Mir Galaxy. Chen Tian was originally sent by Huaye to create trouble for the Heavenly Sword Legion. Now that Binghua is specifically trying to catch and kill his legion, how can Chen Tianze continue to stay in the Mir Galaxy? After Chen Tian retreated, Binghua also breathed a sigh of relief. Strictly speaking, if Chen Tian chose to fight Binghua to death, it would only be the Sky Sword Legion that would suffer. Because Ran from the Skull Galaxy front had sent several instructions to apply for assistance, but all he received were Binghua's orders to stick to them. Now that Chen Tian has withdrawn his troops, Binghua can finally go to support the Skull system. Of course, Binghua did not transfer all the troops in the Mir system. he still left 200,000 Tianji Legion to prevent Huaye Group. Came to harass again. Blue energy particles flashed across the dark space tunnel from time to time, and a powerful space thrust acted on Binghua, pushing her forward. I don't know how long it took, whether it was 10 minutes or an hour. Binghua felt his eyes light up, and his whole body felt light, and he was in the universe. The sudden scene change made Binghua a little uncomfortable and felt that the surrounding environment had a sense of illusion, but the sudden sound brought Binghua back to reality. Welcome the Queen, I'm waiting here to welcome the Queen. Led by Ran, followed by the commanders and deputy commanders of each Heavenly Sword Legion, and then a large number of Heavenly Sword Legion soldiers, like a silver curtain across the starry sky. Binghua stood in front of the huge star and watched this grand scene. He moved his legs and took a few steps forward on the table cut out of the black meteorite. Facing the entire Heavenly Sword Legion, Binghua was confident and full of the power of the Angel King. The sound echoed in this cosmic space. As your king, there is only one thing I can give you, and that is victory. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 164. After Binghua led 200,000 Heavenly Sword Legion soldiers to the Skull Galaxy front, the Heavenly Sword Legion officially sounded the clarion call for counterattack. Binghua simply sat on his Heavenly Sword throne on the Heavenly Blade flagship, which brought about an explosive increase in the morale of the Heavenly Sword Legion. Just like the halo of courage opened up with the Ice Flower as the center, the morale of the soldiers of the Heavenly Sword Legion became extremely high. The Heavenly Sword Legion, which had been suppressed by the male angels, was suddenly at odds with the male angel legion under Hercules. Back! For the Queen! A female angel shouted, holding a shield and a spear that covered her half-body, and instigated her white wings to hit a male angel. The male angel blocked with his spear, but he was still staggered by the impact, and then there was nothing more, because the war spear in the female angel's hand had already penetrated his chest. However, as the first-generation super soldier, this male angel did not die immediately. He tried to attack with a ferocious face, but was kicked away by the female angel. The female angel was about to give chase, but among the countless male and female angels clashing around her, a male angel soldier suddenly rushed from the slope and attacked with a spear. She was unprepared for a moment, and the armor on her back was instantly pierced. However, due to the obstruction of the armor, she avoided being penetrated through her body. For a moment, severe pain rose in the chest of the female angel. But the female angel endured the pain and turned around to swipe away the attacking male angel with a spear in her hand, forcing back the attacking male angel. A trace of hot blood gushes out from the wound on her back, and in an instant it turned into blood beads and floated in the vacuum of the universe. Blended into this bloody battlefield. Even though the pretty face behind the red tassel helmet was distorted by pain, the female angel rushed towards the male angel, who sneaked up on her without a trace of fear. Because she is no longer the one she used to be, who could only passively endure, but the one she is now, who can work hard for her own destiny. Because of Binghua's arrival, Angel Ran can finally temporarily escape from the position of military commander and join the frontal battlefield to make up for the vacancy in the high-end combat power of both sides. Unlike other third-generation warriors in the Legion who specialize in dark energy drive, Angel Ran is the only warrior in the Legion besides Binghua who specializes in thunder drive. For a moment, lightning and thunder roared around the angel, giving the other angels the feeling that the King of Heavenly Sword was personally here. 4 teams want to deal with me, but you underestimate me too much. I am the left-wing guard of the Heavenly Sword King. Ran raised the flaming sword, and dazzling blue lightning spread out from the center of it, spreading all around like a spider web. Because it was not in the atmosphere, the power of lightning was greatly weakened, but this was only for third-generation warriors. Although this lightning is converted from dark energy, it is still a scattering attack. It may not be able to kill even a generation of warriors, but it is enough to paralyze them for a period of time. A second of hesitation on the battlefield is the difference between life and death, not to mention the seconds of being paralyzed by lightning. As soon as the scattered lightning disappeared, Angel Ran sprinted out with the flaming sword, passed over the paralyzed male angels, and stabbed them on the neck or heart. The fighting styles of the other third-generation warriors in the Heavenly Sword Legion were not as gorgeous as Ran. They all wielded red flaming swords driven by dark energy and slashed wildly. The alloy war spear in the hands of an ordinary male angel cannot stop the slashing of the flame-level weapon blessed with dark energy. It will be broken into two pieces after a few times. Then the male angel can taste the deadly flame sword edge. Taste. However, Angel Ran and the other Heavenly Sword Legion commanders could only remain unparalleled among the male angels for a moment, and then they were approached by the high-end combat power under Hercules. Just like the laws of the battlefield since ancient times, soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals, and kings against kings. Binghua was on the specially modified Tianren flagship. This flagship had no dome or walls, and the conference hall was directly exposed. Binghua was sitting on the silver throne in front of the suspended silver sword and the atmospheric carved wall. His face was solemn, and his dark eyes were overlooking the entire battlefield. This is a Legion-level melee, and the battlefield alone almost covers the distance between several planets. Because both sides have Star Destroyer-level weapons of mass destruction, and the angels themselves are very flexible, the battlefield is very scattered, and the battles are all fought on a small team scale. This will test the quality of ordinary warriors on both sides, but generally speaking, the female angels have the advantage, because the female angels are in a team of 5, and the male angels are in a team of 4. In addition, the female angel is equipped with a shield, which can make up for some gaps in combat experience, so the female angel still has a certain upper hand. Of course, as long as there is a war, there will be casualties, and even a slight advantage cannot change this. The casualty figures of both the Skyward Sword Legion and the Angel Legion under Hercules are soaring. A large number of young lives have been devoured by the monster called War, and this monster is not satisfied with this. The flaming sword and the silver cross sword collided fiercely. Although no sound was heard, the exploding ring of dark energy fully demonstrated the power of flaming weapons in the hands of high-level super warriors. Ran raised his high-heeled combat boots and swept out with a whip kick, then leveled the flaming sword and stabbed straight away. Ran's opponent was obviously not a rookie either. He stepped back to avoid the whip kick, buying himself time to react. Then he saw the right moment and struck out with the cross sword in his hand, deflecting the flaming sword that was coming straight at him. The palm knife hit the arm of Ran's sword-holding arm. Ran groaned and almost let go of the flaming sword in his hand due to the pain. Seeing a cold light coming towards him, he could only raise his left arm to cover his face in a hurry. Suddenly there was a splash of fire, and Ran and her opponent were separated again, but there was a clear-cut mark on the front of Ran's left wrist guard. There was a little bit of bright red oozing out of it, and it was obvious that the arm guard did not completely block the sword just now. Ran's side was better. After all, he often followed Binghua and received guidance from Binghua. Although he was surrounded by dangers, he could still fight his opponents vigorously. The other third-generation female angels do not have such strength as Ran. Although they are also third-generation warriors, they are not as good as the high-level male angels under Hercules who have been trained by the Hui group. A silver cold light flashed, a third-generation person. The female angel named Kairuo had the cross sword penetrated her abdomen, and dazzling bright red overflowed from the corners of her mouth. In an instant, the super lethality of the flaming weapon against the super warriors was revealed. Angel Kairuo began to feel that his whole body was losing strength. Even the flaming sword that he could usually swing easily seemed to be more than 10 times heavier. Kairuo's enemy, the high-ranking male angel, had no sympathy for her at all. After drawing out the cross sword, he struck a final fatal blow to Kairuo's heart. As the cross sword that pierced her heart was pulled away, the genetic engine stopped working. Karuo felt cold all over, her strength seemed to dissipate with the heat, and the flaming sword that had been by her side also slipped from her palm. The second update will be added tomorrow. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 165. Binghua placed her hands on the throne and suddenly clenched her hands tightly. Naturally, she discovered Karuo's death through the Sky Blade's detection system. Although Binghua and Karuo were not very familiar, they still felt an inexplicable anger and sadness, because all the fallen female angels, including Karuo, were loyal to her, the king. Binghua stood up directly from the throne. She decided not to continue standing like a flag here, but chose to do her best to reduce the casualties of her sisters. The angel wings unfolded behind his back, and the next moment the dark silver feathers quickly covered the original angel wings behind Binghua. The next moment, a silver ray of light surrounded by lightning shot directly from the Sky Blade flagship to the battlefield. In a moment, it had traveled an endless distance and arrived at the area where the high-level angels were fighting. I don't know if it was a minute or 5, but the heart and abdomen were penetrated by the flame-level weapon, and the body functions almost completely disappeared. The angel Karuo, who was floating in the space waiting for death, suddenly felt himself falling into a warm embrace, and he struggled to open his eyes wider. With his eyelids about to close, Karuo spotted a profile of a face that was very familiar to him. He couldn't help but speak, but his tone was extremely weak. "Queen. I'm." Binghua lowered his head and looked at Karuo, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth in his arms. He wanted to say something to comfort him, but when he opened his mouth, all the words in his heart were blocked in his throat. Karuo noticed the queen's movements and forced a smile on her bloodless face to speak. "Queen, I am very happy to die in your arms in the end. I feel that my life has not been in vain to receive this honor, so, the queen does not need to be sad for me, really, I am extremely happy." Binghua's eyes were a little sore, and he could only look away in order to prevent tears from welling up. This scene was discovered by a high-ranking male angel not far away. "King of Heavenly Sword. Suffer death." A high-ranking male angel looked excited, because as long as he could kill the Heavenly Sword King Binghua, he would definitely be appreciated by King Hercules. Binghua just glanced at the charging male angel, raised his left hand and spread his fingers. The next moment, the wormholes around Binghua opened, and 8 god-binding locks and a flaming sword shot out at the same time. After doing all this, Binghua lowered his eyes again and continued to listen to Karuo's last words, not minding that the long black hair hanging down on his chest was stained with bright red blood. When the male angel who rushed towards him saw 8 rays of silver light shooting towards him, his pupils tightened and he quickly blocked with his sword. He didn't want to give up this great opportunity, so he didn't dodge. But the next moment, the cross sword in the male angel's hand was easily cut off by the silver blade that was only 2 fingers thick, and then a total of 8 silver blades with chains attached to the back passed through his chest. But even so, this male angel is not dead yet, because the weapons that penetrate his body do not have the function of destroying super genes. But a flash of red light got closer and closer in the male angel's sight, and finally pierced his body with a pop, leaving only half of the flaming sword exposed. "Okay, the bug that bothered us has disappeared. Do you have anything else to say?" Binghua tried his best to make his tone and eyes softer. "Queen, you don't have to blame yourself, I can only tell you, I have chosen a king worthy of allegiance. Even the vitality of a third-generation warrior has reached its limit at this moment." After saying these words intermittently, Karuo's eyes completely closed together, and he quietly lost his life. Binghua gently laid Karuo flat in the void in front of him, and then carefully and gently pulled his hand away from the back of Karuo's neck. "Don't worry, even if it's because of the last words in your mouth, I won't let all you angels down." The softness on Binghua's face disappeared without a trace in the next moment, as if everything before was an illusion. With a thought, the divine lock was withdrawn from the body of the already cold male angel, and the instant belt was also pulled out the flaming sword that penetrated his heart. After recovering these weapons, Binghua turned his attention to other high-level male angels. The next moment, these male angels who were fighting against the commander of the Heavenly Sword Legion were mercilessly slaughtered. Both sides were obviously third-generation warriors of the same level, but Binghua gave the other angels the feeling of chopping melons and vegetables. Haglas, who saw such a scene from behind, finally couldn't sit still. Although he knew that Binghua was very strong, he didn't expect that he had become this strong after not seeing him for a while. So Haglath put on his heavy armor, picked up his heavy battle axe, and prepared to take action himself, for a king-on-king contest. Chi Yun immediately held up a cut-cross sword, Binghua lowered his right shoulder, and the angel wings behind him spread out and moved quickly in front of him. There was a flash of silver brilliance, and a silver sword tip flew up. Just as the male angel watched in surprise, the sword was broken in his hand. The red abyss sword swooped out like a poisonous snake, and the tip of the sword easily pierced the male angel's chest. As Binghua pulled it, the wings on his back lifted up and struck forward in a vertical slash. The male angel who was pulled over hit him from the head. His foot was split in two, and his death was extremely miserable. Just when Binghua moved his gaze and flapped his wings to continue hunting those high-level male angels, he suddenly stopped moving forward. King of Heavenly Sword, don't you think it's embarrassing for a king to keep making trouble for ordinary angels? The voice was loud and unusual, like thunder ringing in his ears. At the same time, this voice made Binghua feel strange yet familiar, and the appearance of a male angel had vaguely emerged in his mind. When Binghua turned around, it turned out to be Haglas, who was fully armed. Seeing the burning fighting spirit in his eyes and his disregard for the lives of his men, Binghua couldn't help but feel inexplicable anger in his heart. Raising the red abyss sword in his hand and pointing it directly at Hercules, Binghua's eyes were sharp and his disgust was undisguised. I realize I hate you now. Hercules didn't care. He stretched the muscles at the corners of his mouth to reveal a ferocious smile. His strong figure leaned forward slightly, giving Binghua an inexplicable sense of oppression, as if a giant lion was looking down at her, a tiny prey. Well, I'm really sorry. You hate me, but I don't hate you. How about we join forces? But Haglath responded with a swipe from the Chiwan sword, but Haglath just raised the giant battle axe in his hand and knocked it away. Binghua was not surprised either. If he couldn't block his own sword, Hercules would no longer be the king of angels. If you're not afraid, come with me. After Binghua took back the red abyss sword, he turned around and flapped his wings in one direction, quickly disappearing from Haglath's sight. Hercules could not help but narrow his eyes and contact his subordinates in the dark channel. Check for me, see if there's anything unusual in the direction she went. Hercules received a reply in less than 5 seconds. Reporting to the king, no ambush was found ahead, only a small primitive planet. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 166. In this bustling starry sky, there are male and female angels fighting in teams of several people everywhere. But there were exceptions, and that was Binghua and Hercules, who was following her more than 10 kilometers away. Binghua, who was flying ahead at an extremely fast speed, turned his head slightly and used his peripheral vision to observe Haglath, who was following behind. He began to contact the angel commander of the Heavenly Sword Legion who was responsible for the entire battlefield through secret communication. Get me a skyblade, aim at the primitive ecological planet in front of me, and prepare for a star-destroying strike. It's the Queen. Hercules on the other side also gave the same order, because both sides knew that this was an opportunity. Only third-generation super soldiers or above can survive the aftermath of the Star Destroyer strike. However, for most ordinary angels who are still first-generation super soldiers, the Star Destroyer strike is worthy of the name of a weapon of mass destruction, a light explosion. The energy aftermath can wash them into ashes. It is precisely with this in mind that the two sides will disperse into small teams as combat units and conduct wide-area operations to ensure that one Star Destroyer strike cannot destroy more than 5 of their own angels. But the Angel King is different. A Star Destroyer strike can replace an Angel King. It is definitely a profitable business, but the chance of achieving this goal is so small that almost no angel thinks it will succeed. Because the Star Destroyer strike was so massive and the preparation time was quite long, the powerful Angel King had long since disappeared. But this does not mean that naval gun attacks such as the Star Destroyer strike are useless. When the two Angel Kings are fighting in a decisive battle, if one party is at a disadvantage and wants to retreat, the powerful naval gun can cover the attack in time, which is enough. Dispel the idea of another Angel King chasing after him. At this moment, a planet wrapped in a white atmosphere and a star emitting infinite light and heat at the end of his sight came into Binghua's sight. Then Binghua slightly adjusted the flight angle and rushed straight towards the side of the planet facing the light. The dense forest formed by countless towering trees tens of meters high blocks most of the sunlight projected from the sky, and at the same time provides a shady living environment for the small animals below. Amidst the sound of gurgling water, huge creatures are playing in the water. When they are hungry, they will raise their heads to eat the leaves on the side. It is a scene of ecological harmony and tranquility. But today, this peace and tranquility was broken. There was a dull roar in the sky, and 2 meteors with long red tail flames slid down the sky, but there was no roar of hitting the ground. The flames ignited by the high temperature suddenly exploded, revealing one of them with long black hair, Binghua wearing silver armor, and silver wings on his back. The same goes for another meteor. When the flames exploded, what was revealed was a man with golden spiked hair hanging down his back, wearing a silver-black heavy armor, Hercules. The boots with spikes on the toes were heavily stepped on the ground. Hercules raised his head and looked at Binghua, who was slowly landing on the top of a boulder more than 10 meters high. Is this the cemetery you chose for yourself? It feels like the environment is pretty good and suitable for a beautiful angel like you. Hercules started with a frivolous tone, but he never put down the battle axe in his hand, which shows that his vigilance has never been relaxed. You don't put down your weapon when you talk to me. Are you afraid of me? While Binghua spoke, he raised his hands and 2 flaming swords slowly came out of the wormhole and were held by him. Afraid? Of course I am afraid. Among all the female angel kings, only your speed and methods are the most troublesome. I don't even care about Kesha, but only for you, the king of heavenly sword, I will mention the 12. Be extremely careful and handle it with caution. Seeing Binghua take out his weapon, Hercules also began to lower his center of gravity. The wings behind his back were floating in small directions, ready to move quickly at any time. Then I feel really honored. Before she could finish her words, Binghua swooped down towards Hercules on the ground with 2 flaming swords in hand, and even the sound could only chase her back. There was a loud collision of metal, and at the same time there were fallen leaves and dust blown up by the impact. Hercules felt that the force coming from the tomahawk was not too great, so he pushed it forward and then raised the axe and struck it down with one blow. Binghua's feet did not stick to the ground, and he kept flying slightly off the ground, easily dodging the tomahawk coming from his side. Then he straightened his arms and started to spin violently. The 2 flaming swords were centered on the ice, like rotating windmill blades. They slashed at Hercules extremely quickly, even forming a circle in the air for a while. The connected red sword light. Haglath was suppressed for a moment and could only lift the axe handle to block Binghua's rotating flaming sword, but soon Haglath saw the right opportunity and struck out with an elbow. A clang. The flaming sword, which was slashed at a constant frequency, was deflected by Haglatha's huge force. Before Binghua could readjust, the silver axe blade was already striking towards him as Haglath shouted. Boom! The crisp sound of metal collision was mixed with an ear-splitting buzz, and the tree crowns hundreds of meters around were shaking. Some nearby small animals were directly stunned by the sound and passed out on the ground. The flaming sword in Binghua's hand was knocked out by Haglath and stabbed into the ground more than 10 meters away. He was also knocked back more than 10 meters away. Binghua looked at his slightly trembling palms, and suddenly heard a loud shout. The wings behind his back fluttered and he immediately retreated from the place. Boom! Raising the battle axe above his head, Haglatha's jumping attack failed and struck the ground, creating a deep crack extending several meters in the ground on the spot. Binghua replaced the flaming sword with his left hand and his right hand, raised it high above his head, and began to calculate in his mind. The stellar energy accumulation algorithm is started, adjusted to the atmosphere calculation formula, and begins to drive the accumulation of stellar energy. However, Haglath obviously saw this scene. He raised his battle axe with a shout and rushed directly towards the ice flower in the air. Don't even think you have time to calculate the driving algorithm. Binghua frowned, made a slight cut, and swung the flaming sword that only gathered the energy of the star for less than 2 seconds. Boom! A dazzling white light exploded in the air, and the scorching heat wave spread, evaporating all the moisture in the air. Binghua didn't expect that the incomplete stars could gather and hurt Haglath, so after releasing them, he immediately flapped his wings and left. At the same time, he analyzed in his mind some of the data he had just obtained about Haglath. I am at a disadvantage in terms of strength, but speed is probably not what Haglath is good at. He can also hit the blade of a high-speed swing with his elbow, which shows that Haglath has extremely strong combat experience and vision, and he needs to be prepared for this. But from this point of view, choosing this planet as the battlefield is indeed a correct decision. There is sufficient light energy here, and the positive and negative charges in the atmosphere are active. They can be called at any time. As long as you seize the opportunity, you can use dark silver weapons. Make a killing blow. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 167. While Binghua was flying in the air thinking about this, Haglath broke through the smoke caused by the explosion, and the battle axe struck at Binghua's head mercilessly. The pupils contracted for a moment, reflecting the silver axe blade that struck him. The next moment, blue and white lightning burst out from Binghua's body, and his whole body shot out like a bolt of lightning. Haglath struck the air with an axe, raised his head and glanced around, when suddenly there was a roar like thunder from the side, and then a silvery cold light suddenly appeared. Boom! Lightning like spider webs exploded in the air, and a figure fell from the sky to the earth at high speed, creating a human-shaped pit. Haglath climbed up from the pit and looked at the tomahawk that was missing a corner in his hand. He felt cold in his heart. He almost lost his head just now. Fortunately, he lowered his head and blocked it with the tomahawk. Binghua secretly said that it was a pity, but now that the Ansu silver weapon had been exposed, there was no need to hide it. Binghua was suspended in mid-air, and he raised his sword with his right hand and pointed it towards the ground. Blue-white lightning instantly clung to the sword body, and then starting from the tip of the sword, it turned into 6 arm-thick lightning bolts that bent and struck downwards. Seeing this, Haglath didn't even hide, he straightened up his chest and spoke with a loud smile. King of Heavenly Sword, please stop using these little tricks, they are of no use to me. The lightning that struck downwards split the trees black and cracked, but the lightning I struck on Haglath had no other effect except a few arcs of electricity and black smoke. Sure enough, ordinary thunder energy has no effect on the super warriors of the God-making project. If thunder clouds are gathered, it will take too long with my current computing power. Hercules will not give me this time at all. Thinking of such ice blossoms, the lightning emitted from the flaming sword instantly stopped, the micro-wormhole opened, and the next moment dozens of long swords shot out at supersonic speeds. A huge explosion sounded, and the ground was directly shattered by the long sword carrying terrifying kinetic energy. However, her glass was the only one who directly withstood several waves of Binghua's longsword and continued to bombard him, as if he was deliberately showing off his defensive capabilities. But in the next second, Hercules got cold feet and dodged to one side without hesitation. The incoming ice flower wing sliced through the ground where he was just now, leaving a long finger-wide cut mark. Her glass confirmed his guess as soon as he dodged and cursed directly. "I told you that I couldn't find the weapon in that guy Huaye's hand. It turned out that you had taken it away." Binghua also stopped attacking, and while answering Hegrath's words, he combined the weapons in his arsenal in his mind and began to formulate a plan to kill Hegrath. For some reason, Binghua didn't want to expose all his trump cards unless it was the moment when he had to take them out. In the battle between high-level super soldiers, only the first battle has the highest chance of killing the opponent, because as long as there is a battle, it often means the leakage of data and intelligence. For example, the flame bombing used in the last siege of Huaye, and the new type of god-beaming lock used by Binghua on the battlefield. It is estimated that Hegrath already knows about it, and he will become defensive when he sees the real thing, so it is difficult. It worked. The fact is, as Binghua said, the special chains with special silver blades at the front, her glass is very aware of their sharpness and has been prepared to deal with them, so he is not afraid. Even the silver-winged her glass used by Binghua just now was actually aware of its power, otherwise he wouldn't have evaded it. After only a few seconds passed, Hegrath couldn't wait anymore. He flapped his wings on his back, and with a flash of speed, he arrived in front of Binghua. He still struck down with his axe, but it missed the target. In terms of speed, Binghua believed that he was no worse than any angel. He used thunder tactics to leave the place instantly, and when he came to the top of Hegrath's head, he kicked forward. Hergras tilted his head, reached out and grabbed Binghua's silver boots, threw them downwards, and then followed up with a diving battle axe to chop them down. The ice flower in the air clenched its upper and lower silver teeth together. It was considered that her rich combat experience made her make a decision immediately. A blur of light and shadow flashed, and the ice flower in the air suddenly split into two. It avoided the coming battle axe and flapped its wings to drag out blurry after images behind the swooping Hegrath. The sword slashed with all its strength. Hearing the sound of a bell, there was only a shallow slash mark on the heavy armor on the back of her glass. This result made Binghua couldn't help but cry out. Armor made of red gold. Hergras turned over several times, and swung his battle axe like a rotating fan blade to fly Binghua away. Binghua wiped the armor on his chest and found that there was also a shallow damage about 10 centimeters long. It felt a bit thrilling. Sure enough, the male Angel King was not that easy to deal with. Seeing Hergras rushing toward him, Binghua quickly raised his left hand, and the god-beaming lock shot out from the wormhole, blocking all directions in which Hegrath could evade. Seeing this, Hercules showed a smile of success. Facing the 8 silver blades flying towards them, he faced them directly without changing direction. When Binghua saw this scene, he had a bad premonition in his heart. Her glass suddenly leaned back to avoid it, and the shooting silver blade passed over him. But at this moment, Hercules suddenly threw his battle axe upwards, and the rotating handle of the battle axe was instantly entangled with the god-binding lock. The silver blade that shot forward stopped flying because it was pulled by the god-beaming lock connected to it. It was held by Hegrath's outstretched right hand, and then he swiped in one direction, directly cutting off one of the god-beaming locks. The silver blade that was disconnected from the Shensu lock fell into Hergras's left hand the next moment. He raised it and cut off the Shensu lock that was trying to connect with the silver blade held in his right hand. Seeing this, Binghua almost bit his lower lip, secretly cursing that he was too hasty, and quickly controlled the weapon engines inside the 2 silver blades taken away by Hercules. At the same time, without caring about anything else, Binghua held the flaming sword and rushing towards Hergras, he must not give the opponent time to resolve the silver blade. Hergras got what he dreamed of, and quickly retreated backwards without caring about the solution, and at the same time, he decided to avoid the flying flaming sword. But the next second, the red abyss sword was carried out by Binghua and bit out like a poisonous snake. The target was Hagla's right hand. Hercules had no choice but to block with the silver blade he had just obtained. However, the inexplicable resistance coming from the silver blade made his movements pause, and the next moment his arm was entangled with the red abyss sword. Then a red light emerged on the red abyss sword. The sacred language engraved before took effect at this moment. The extremely terrifying high temperature began to burn Hegrath's arm. At the same time, a force was transmitted along the sword body, killing Hegrath. Glass pulled towards Binghua's position. Binghua did not choose to use any other means of attack. He spread his wings on his back and slashed straight out like a sharp blade. The next moment, Binghua and Hercules passed by each other. Hergras's right hand holding the silver blade spun and flew up in the air. The blood flowers contained in it were so conspicuous under the sunlight. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 168. Hegrath, who thought he had succeeded in his goal and held the most cutting-edge weapon of angelic civilization, did not expect to be tricked by the silver blade in his hand at the next moment. The silver blade in the broken hand lost its big hand, and jumped out of it, entering the wormhole opened by Binghua, and the broken hand was also taken by Hegrath. Hergras looked very ugly. He had lost one of his hands for the dark silver weapon, which undoubtedly resulted in a loss of blood. Fortunately, the first-generation divine body had extremely strong healing capabilities. Hergras pressed his severed hand against his wound, and the next moment the wound glowed with red energy and began to heal quickly. Binghua felt even more difficult to deal with when he saw this scene. Unless Hegrath was fatally injured, it would be difficult to kill Hegrath with his healing ability. As expected, the super warrior became more and more difficult to deal with each generation. However, it was not impossible to kill Hegrath. Binghua opened his left hand and held a flaming sword that he poked out from the wormhole. The sword spine was hollowed out and embedded with an unknown silver material, and he stood it up in front of him. The sacred language on the sword began to light up and was being activated by the ice flower. Herglas below bent his knees and jumped up into the air, holding a silver blade that looked out of proportion to his body in his left hand and pounced on Binghua. But the next moment, a micro-wormhole opened around Binghua, and more than 20 flaming swords shot out from it, covering Hegrath in the air like a metal rain curtain. Hergrath's eyes widened, he raised his left hand and quickly knocked away several flaming swords, but the next moment, 3 flaming swords were nailed into his breastplate. Boom! With a huge explosion, Herglas hit the ground at a faster speed than when it came, and the flaming swords projected in the sky had no tendency to stop, firing at a speed of 50 swords per second. The roaring explosions kept rising, and countless pieces of earth and stone were thrown into the air. Before they could fall, the next wave of explosion threw them higher again. Suddenly, Haglath rushed out from the bombardment range of the flaming sword, and flapped his wings to circle around the ice flower and approach. Seeing this, Binghua immediately closed the micro-wormhole. Binghua's application of space-time technology was temporarily inferior to Liang Bing, and he could not change the opening direction of the micro-wormhole at will. Among the 4 current female angel kings, Kesha focuses on simplification of energy-driven formulas, which is the simplification of sacred language. Liang Bing focuses on space technology, including Angel's space star mark and Tianren's space jump. Most of these technologies are supported by Liang Bing's theory. He 11 is currently specializing in the optimization of angel supergenes, and is also involved in some other types of large-scale engineering research. Only Binghua himself has been miniaturizing, improving, and popularizing the existing mature angel technology. During this period, Binghua conducted a large number of experiments and found that weapons and armor made of red gold as the main material only had the property of hardness. Only the appearance changed, and the basic properties did not change at all. But the simplified energy formula theory proposed by Keshe, that is, the emergence of sacred language, gave Binghua an idea. That is whether it is possible to use the flaming sword as a carrier to activate multiple energy-driven formulas at the same time. However, this idea has always been limited by computing power, and this idea has been shelved. For example, the army-breaking armor and transforming sword and gun studied before are a kind of weapon experiment inscribed with sacred language. Experimental results show that this is feasible and can save the time of importing the algorithm, but it still requires the computing power provided by the holder to maintain it. But as Binghua became more familiar with the use of this weapon, new ideas emerged. Since the sacred language and energy circuits engraved on the weapon could be synchronized, could the energy-driven algorithm also be introduced into it? The result is gratifying. The result is the flaming sword distributed by the Sky Sword Legion. The dark energy driving formula has been introduced in advance. It can be used as long as it is activated. Since there is a dark energy driving formula, other energy driving formulas will gradually become available. Formula. However, dark energy is the most powerful in terms of light theory, so the Sky Sword Legion will popularize the ability to drive dark energy, so that ordinary second-generation angels will not be powerless in the face of third-generation angels. Binghua did not panic when her glass approached her, because she had already completed the activation of the weapon's built-in algorithm. The wings covered with dark silver opened to cover the side of Binghua. The layers of silver feathers were like a tight shield wrapping Binghua. Seeing this, Hegrath could only punch out with all his strength, hitting Binghua's silver wings with a bang, sending him flying away. But Binghua only flew upside down for more than 10 meters before he spread his wings to stop his retreat. Then his body blurred for a while, and countless after-images spread around the center of the ice flower. After a while, they began to solidify into pieces that looked like real ice. Magnificent! More than a dozen ice flowers appeared in the air, and they raised their special flaming swords with unknown dark blue electric light flowing in their hands, and then spread out and stabbed Hergras from all directions. It's just a cover-up. Herglas snorted coldly and looked around, then locked onto one of the Binghua who was thrusting towards him, and stretched out his hand to grab it. Binghua's eyes narrowed, and the light and shadow algorithm seemed to be gradually unable to keep up with higher-level battles, so he was seen through so easily. But it was originally a deception to attract attention, and it was normal for it to be seen through, but as long as the sword in his hand could hit Hercules, that would be enough. After being discovered, Binghua no longer concealed herself, but instead rushed towards Hergras as fast as possible. Binghua was completely absent from the air, only a blue electric light shot out. Although Hercules couldn't keep up with Binghua's speed, it didn't mean that he couldn't capture his movements. The direction of his outstretched palm slightly changed to the position of Binghua's neck. The other hand was holding the silver blade that he had taken from Binghua, ready at any time. Attack. Under such circumstances, Binghua and Herglas collided, but the scene that appeared was completely inconsistent with Hergras's expectations. The silver wings on Binghua's back were like a giant blade against the silver blade in Hergras's left hand, and what he stretched out with his right hand grasped not Binghua's neck but Binghua's raised left wrist. For a moment, the two of them stayed in this position and were frozen in the air. Binghua was the first to react. Isn't this a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? A micro-wormhole opened in the air, and 6 divine beams shot out from almost zero distance. The sharp silver blades at the front effortlessly pierced Hegrath's heavy armor made of mixed red gold and passed through his body. The nails were driven straight into the ground below, causing a series of blood flowers. Holding back the blood rising from his throat and the severe pain like 1,000 arrows piercing his heart, Herglass felt extremely angry. This was completely different from his previous fighting method, because Binghua never fought with him from beginning to end. Fighted. Moreover, the situation that was originally envisioned did not play out at all as Herglass expected, and instead, he got himself into a trap. Seeing Herglass being restrained by the shushan that passed through him, Binghua turned around and the silver wings behind him flew out. Herglass saw a flash of silvery cold light hitting his neck. He ignored Binghua's entanglement and threw Binghua away with a swing of his right hand that tightly held Binghua's left wrist. But after being thrown out, Binghua finally threw the sword in his hand towards Hercules, as if some function had been activated, and the air around the sword was slightly distorted. I would like to apologize in advance to all readers and thank you for your support of this book. However, because I have recently found a new job, I am starting to feel a little uncomfortable. My hands hurt due to fatigue and it is a bit difficult to type. Therefore, the recent updates may be a little slower. I will try my best to maintain the second update. After getting used to it, normal updates will resume. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 169. Hercules wanted to dodge, but the god-binding lock that passed through his body didn't give him this chance at all. In desperation, he could only use the silver blade in his hand, which was no larger than the size of his palm, to draw the style that Binghua threw. A special flaming sword. The moment the silver blade touched the sword blade, an inexplicable force pulled Herglass's whole body towards the ground. Herglass flapped his wings desperately in the air, but he couldn't stop his falling body at all. The severe pain caused by the friction between the 6 divine bundles in his body and his flesh and blood made Herglass almost scream with veins on his forehead. Boom! Herglass looked at the special flaming sword that was against him as he fell to the ground, and suddenly thought of Huaye's gravity drive, and the special gravity that inexplicably pulled him to the ground. No, it should be said that gravity made the surrounding ground they all fell half a meter deep. But the first problem that needs to be solved now is the god-binding lock that passes through his body. Just as Herglass struggled to raise his hand to hold the god-binding lock, and was about to pull out the silver blade whose front end had penetrated into the ground unknown how deep, a shadow appeared. Appearing in the sky above Hercules, the silver wings that were different from ordinary angels were fully unfolded, and they were so bright and dazzling under the sunlight. Herglass's movements paused. In his mind, he contacted his own side, and his tone had never been more urgent. Immediately let me launch a Star Destroyer strike here. No need to confirm. This is my position. Launch it quickly. Countless kilometers away from this primitive ecological planet, a celestial warship that looked like a suspended metal fortress suddenly emitted huge energy that had been stored for a long time, turning into a thick orange-red light beam hundreds of meters thick and flying out. After speaking, Herglass roared and shouted angrily at the ice flower in the sky, "You can't kill me. I am a being with a divine body." After shouting, the computing power of the Herglass gene engine was fully activated, and his whole body was ignited with flames formed by thick dark energy, as if he was coated with a burning orange coat. Binghua ignored Herglass's angry shouts, but spread his wings and pointed them downwards, and gave instructions to the ants. Silver sword feathers attached to the wings in the dark position. Just hearing a piercing scream, countless small metal swords that were only more than 20 centimeters long and 3 or 4 centimeters wide, and looked like feathers, shot out downwards. Dark silver, a special weapon made from dark silver ore as the main material, has only one characteristic, and that is incomparable sharpness. The dark silver sword feathers that shot out were accelerated twice after entering the gravity field created by the flaming sword, and their penetrating power became even more powerful. Hergris danced his arms wildly, his elbows, fists, and wrists were all his weapons, smashing or flicking them, blocking the volley of sword feathers for a moment. However, he could only barely protect his face and heart. The sword feathers shot out directly broke through the defense of Higratha's body. His body, which could almost ignore the slashes of flame-level weapons, could not block Insuyan at all. The sharp edge of the weapon was shot in a moment like a leaking sieve, and some sword feathers got stuck on his bones. For a while, countless blood dripped along the wounds onto the uneven ground. But only Higlatha's fatal vitals were not harmed by his superb melee defense. Binghua also felt that the load on his head was a bit heavy at this moment, but he still forced himself to activate the recovery command of Insu Silver Sword Feather. The sword feathers that pierced into the ground and the sword feathers that pierced Herglass's body began to tremble, and then covered the white wings behind Binghua again like birds returning to their nests. This is the initial application of the weapon engine. Simple instructions can be imported in advance. When needed, you only need to issue the corresponding command immediately in the dark position. The dark silver sword feathers covering the energy mimetic wings behind Binghua have two simple commands in the micro-weapon engines embedded inside them, namely launch and recovery. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing if the precious dark silver weapon was launched and couldn't be found? However, even so, it will still occupy part of the computing power of Binghua Gene engine. If it is controlled by a pure micro-intelligence system, it will be easily hacked by the enemy using dark information. This is also the reason why the Angel civilization is not manufacturing other small mechanical technology weapons and equipment except celestial battleships and large battleships. Small smart weapons are destined to have less computing power than large devices, and can easily be cracked by angels of 3 or more generations using dark information. Even if a firewall is set up, they will be violently overwhelmed by the data flow from the dark plane. Therefore, the angel civilization is slowly integrating its own physical technology with the invisible dark plane, and is gradually achieving some results. Such as weapon engine technology, energy drive technology, and wireless energy transmission in the dark plane, energy circuits buried inside metal creations like blood vessels. Even though the ice-cold weapon spears used by ordinary soldiers of the angel civilization are very backward, even such cold weapons cannot be mass-produced by aerospace-level civilization because the manufacturing technology is too difficult and cannot be popularized at all. After Binghua recovered all the launched sword feathers, the wounds on Higratha's body began to glow with a burning yellow light, and the flesh and blood began to grow rapidly, gradually filling the missing flesh and blood in the wounds. It was naturally impossible for Binghua to let Hergris successfully heal his wounds like this, and at this point, it didn't matter whether he exposed his hidden cards or not, because no angel would know everything here. Originally I planned to leave a surprise for Hua, but now I'll let you experience it first. Binghua was talking to himself in the air, and seemed to be telling Higlass, who was seriously injured below, when a micro wormhole opened in front of Binghua. In the blurred space wormhole, the silver sword hilt poked out and gradually revealed its full appearance. The silver sword jaw is like a spread-out wing, and in the middle is a blue narrow prismatic crystal, like a vertical pupil that has not been fully opened. Its blade is as wide as a flaming sword, but its edge shape is more graceful. On the blade and spine, there are several tiny lines like electronic circuits that cannot be found without careful observation, adding to its overall appearance a special sense of beauty. This is exactly what Binghua created in the past 2 years, using dark silver mines, red gold and several other special rare resources, combined with several driving algorithms that he was proficient in, to create his own king sword, named Kisha. In fact, the special sword contains 7 kinds of killing abilities. Of course, there is another meaning. In Binghua's understanding, Kisha belongs to a very special fate. It is mainly responsible for killing and life and death, and it belongs to the fate of great evil. Of course, as an angel in this life, Binghua naturally didn't believe this. He just felt that Kisha was consistent with the actual function of his king's sword, so he used this name. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 170. As soon as the king's sword came out, Binghua's temperament also changed. Before, she was just a general who fought on the battlefield and only wanted to kill the enemy. But now when the extraordinary Silver King sword was held by Binghua, it matched her gorgeous outfit. The female angel's light armor and the silver cape connected to the white velvet apron on the back and extending to the calf. An inexplicable kingly aura emanated, giving Haglath, who was seriously injured below, a sense of identity dislocation, as if he was an ordinary angel warrior facing a high-status angel king. However, this idea was shattered in the next second, because I saw the figure of Binghua in the air flashing, bursting out at full speed, and instantly arrived in front of Hergras. The king's sword that was carried out by him and held in his hand had already cut across Glass's neck. Until his eyes were spinning, Hercules still hadn't reacted because everything was so sudden. Wasn't the ice flower in the sky just now? Binghua didn't give Haglas a chance to speak, and struck out with another sword before his head hit the ground. The silver sword light flashed again, and Binghua's decisive blow came in Hergras' eyes wide open. Although there were some surprises during the process, the final result was still within Binghua's expectations. Reluctance and regret flashed through the unclosed eyes of Hagratha's head that was divided into two halves, but all of this was swallowed up by the darkness emerging from the depths of his consciousness. Binghua is preparing to carry out the final cleaning work. Now Herglas is just due to lack of energy and fatal injuries, causing the gene engine to stop working and fall into permanent dormancy. As long as an angel collects his body, provides enough energy, and reactivates his genetic engine in the dark plane, there is still the possibility of Hercules waking up and resurrecting. In order to eliminate this possibility, Binghua plans to launch a flame bombing, using the mixed attack of dark energy and stellar energy completely destroyed this area. But when Zhangfang Binghua was about to use the flame bombing, the clouds in the sky suddenly began to glow red, as if they were ignited with flames. And a dark communication from Skyblade made Binghua quickly turn around and leave the area, flying towards the back of the planet, because the content of Skyblade's communication was as follows. Queen, we have detected that the male angel launched an energy strike on the scale of destroying stars, and the target is your planet. According to estimates, the energy contained in that star-destroying strike was enough to penetrate the primitive ecological planet where you, Queen, are, causing the planet to disintegrate and explode. So Queen, we will also use the Star Destroyer strike to intercept outside the atmosphere, so that it will not cause devastating damage to the planet you are on, Queen. However, it is expected that the terrestrial ecosystem on the planet will be destroyed by the energy aftermath. More than 80 points. Faced with such a report from his subordinate angels, Binghua could only agree. As for destroying the planet's surface ecosystem, Binghua felt that this consequence was within the acceptable range, so Binghua quickly flapped his wings, regardless of the consequences. Start the flame bombing and rush to the other side of the flying star, preparing to withstand the next impact. Two orange-red beams shot out from the deep space of the endless universe, almost condensing into substance, collided outside the atmosphere of a planet. An orange-red flower of destruction bloomed silently in the vacuum of space, and powerful energy fluctuations directly blew away the atmosphere of the nearby planet. Even the surface of the planet was affected, with a giant circular basin visible to the naked eye. At the same time, a dust shockwave like a sky-covering tsunami was set off on the surface of the planet, spreading and sweeping across the entire planet. At this moment, no one on this planet could feel it more clearly than Binghua. The sky-high black shockwave rolled in countless dust at the end of the horizon, and the sky became extremely gray, just like the final scene of the end of the world. Binghua directly found the back of a mountain, took out a flaming sword and cut a cave several meters deep under the mountain, and then flew directly in. A few seconds later, there was a rumbling sound accompanied by a violent shaking feeling. The entire mountain seemed to fall apart in the next second. As for the entrance of the cave that was opened, it was completely blocked by the whistling black storm, emitting an extremely harsh roar. Voice. Binghua just quietly leaned against the rocky mountain wall. Because she successfully killed Hergras, she was in a good mood and relaxed wholeheartedly. She listened to the piercing whistling and the terrifying black storm, enjoying herself in the misery. I thought, this is also a nice scenery, isn't it? Hercules died quietly. It should be said that the news was blocked by thoughtful male angels and prohibited from spreading widely. At the same time, the former Hercules subordinates began to break away from the battle with the Sky Sword Legion one after another, began to retreat in an orderly manner, and soon left the scope of the Skull system. However, although the death of Hercules was blocked, some special changes occurred in the male angel army of the SAR system, which was originally like a whole. However, Binghua didn't pay too much attention to all of this. As the Angel King who leads the Heavenly Sword Legion, these things are not her concern. There are naturally angels below who are responsible for this aspect. Not long after the fall of Hercules, the heavenly King Huaxiang also fell in the hands of Kesha. As for why there was such a major breakthrough in the tug-of-war situation, it was because Hexi used the dark silver ore as the main material to make Kesha a complete set of dark silver weapons was tailor-made. According to Kesha's own request, Hexi made a special weapon for Kesha based on Binghua's sword feather attack mode, which was mainly a silver blade equipped with a weapon engine. Its shape is like a long and narrow handleless flying knife, slightly longer than the entire forearm. A total of 32 of them can be freely combined. The normal form is 2 combined silver blade wings, which Kesha calls silver wings. Relying on silver wings and Liang Bing assisting her with her superb micro-wormhole technology, Kesha, as a third-generation super soldier, powerfully crushed Huaxiang and killed him on the battlefield with silver wings. As the most powerful Angel King was killed in battle, the original Heavenly King army failed to elect the next Heavenly King in time, so it was impossible for him to be defeated by Kesha who had the chance. But just when the Heavenly Sword Legion and Kesha's Heavenly Blade Legion wiped out the remnants of Huglath and Huaxiang, Huaye, who had been nestling in Tianchang, finally moved. At the suggestion of his subordinate Chen Xing, Huaye set off with thunderous force to conquer the Sar Galaxy and Jiao Galaxy. His generals Sumari and Suri each led the elite Tiangong army, instantly severely damaging Kesha's left wing guard led by Angel Elan. The Blade Legion and the Heavenly Sword Legion led by Angel Ran, the left-wing guard of Binghua. And the bad news doesn't stop there. Herglass and Huaxiang were defeated by Kesha and Binghua, and most of their remnants were absorbed by Huaye. It can be said that most of the female angels' fruits of victory were snatched away by Huaye who suddenly jumped over. What worries the 4 angel queens including Binghua, Kesha, Liang Bing, and Hexi most is that this time the main force of Huaye group almost a total of more than 3 million regular angel legions are rushing out to the Nuhe galaxy where Kesha is located. However, the overall strength of the female angel group today is no longer at the mercy of Huaye as it was 50 or 60 years ago. Seeing that Huaye, who had been playing fisherman in the background, finally couldn't help but jump out to pick up the fruits of victory. Binghua, Kesha, Hexi, and Liang Bing discussed it and decided to gather in the Nuhe galaxy to defeat Huaye's main force.